Hey folks, this is Ben Yessel. How's it going? Um, I'm going to have a really nice day tomorrow. I think it's going to be productive. I don't have anything scheduled that I have to do, and so I'll try to make good use of the time, of course, tomorrow. But it's nice having the whole day free. It really is. I can't help but have a few thoughts here for you, though. At least a few. Um, I feel like what I have to say is so serious and sober minded, yet it doesn't have to be. But, you know, I'm just going to try to explain it. I've had a very hard time trying to explain this to my own family in the past. And so here goes. You know, I grew up like a lot of you guys. Everybody's background is a little different, really, and how they grew up and what things are like, what people are like, what school is like. The things that brought me more joy often had to do with my family and my church, somewhat, but more, some some people in my church, I suppose. Um, it's complicated when it comes to people, but different people on some level. Um, but school was really not. It was often not very enjoyable. And I'm actually not talking about the actual coursework. No, I'm not talking about classes and that whole side of school. I'm definitely talking about the social side of it. Not really that great. There were some pretty cool people, sure. So I entered college thinking I was going to be a music teacher, but that didn't happen. And it was outside of my control. I wasn't cut out for it. Psychologically, everything, personality just wasn't the right fit. I didn't know that until doing student teaching. And that's just the tip of the iceberg of what I have to talk about here. What I was really cut out for wasn't just one thing in music, but it definitely music theory and composition. With respect and with respect to that stuff, definitely romantic style tonal composition should have always been my focus, not avant-garde music. It's no, no. It certainly can write it. It certainly has its interesting points. No, but I'm a romantic. I am a romantic, definitely. And I was always cut out, I think, for theory of composition more than anything else. Now, I certainly am strong in performance. I'm a strong horn player. But that's not what I do best. And has been rarely a time from beginning of college till now, rarely times with any composition program, where I really felt like I was in a better element, or more of an element in composition that suited me and what I wanted to do in my life. I can't emphasize how unbelievably frustrating this has been. I can't emphasize that enough. It's not a question of. I really have only so much knowledge of how things work in colleges. And I don't know who to point the finger to, or if it's back at me for, just not knowing where to go, what to do. But I improved as a musician. I most certainly did. It doesn't puzzle me at all why so many composers are so puzzled to begin with about this whole situation. Musicians, composers. It's like it's, and then you hear rumors about colleges. and how they're Ponzi schemes and they're just taking people's money and they're not really training people that well because, you know, you start thinking about what's really going on with the leadership of different kinds of colleges. You know, and there's only so much that you can try to guesstimate before you're definitely just guessing. You can tie back to Illuminati, you can tie it back to whatever it is, but there are some very deep flaws still in higher education that I'm not even going to get to in this video so much because I went into music. And there's all kinds of other videos, I'm sure, about other people's college experiences. They talk about other majors and other colleges and other programs outside of even Central Washington and BYU. But the thing is that when I graduated from high school, I didn't know that theory composition was my strongest area. I thought I was going to be a band director. The professors I had at both BYU and Central Washington, whether they were forbidden or not, were not especially helpful in regard to what I was truly best at. They were mentors, but not. And I can't point the finger at them entirely because, again, I can't expect them to be God, but they should have seen. They knew enough to know, at least the professor that really I studied with a lot. He knew that I wasn't cut out for being a band director. But the problem is that whether I communicated my original major to him or not, later or earlier, or we're just going to get through the general stuff first and then get to the more specialized stuff later, whatever it was, it didn't go quite the way I planned it. But I can't really fault him again. But again, the guidance I had in college was not really what I would like to have been. But again, I can't fault them. They're imperfect. The college system is imperfect. I don't know if there were rules in place that forbade professors to do certain things anyway, to have certain kinds of counsel. I don't know. I won't know all these things until I'm a professor myself. They're too hard to explain. And it might vary with the dean. It might vary with the college itself. What kinds of topics you can talk about from professors to students, even if it's retired professor or whatever. There's still a lot of unanswered questions I have about what's unprofessional or not, and it has a great deal to do with what different colleges expect of their professors and their people that attend the college. Yeah, and it might seem like I'm exaggerating this point, but if I don't know, I really honestly don't know every single subject matter and whether it's appropriate or not to talk about with professors. Oftentimes, it's not a question of whether it's appropriate or not. It's a question of, I don't know. I mean, unless you're talking about someone's personal stuff, there's a lot of things that I think are pretty much free game to talk about. But especially if you're talking about career-related things and music and things, that's definitely okay to talk about. And that's what you should be talking about. You can even talk about other things of a general nature in someone's life, but I've never had the desire to ask personal questions of my professors, other than I want to at least know that this person is a sort of person I can put my trust in their hands, because they're my mentors. They're people that are going to be. They should have a great deal of insight and knowledge and wisdom. And if they don't, they shouldn't be my mentor, and I shouldn't be taking classes at this place or whatever. But that's all whatever. The Pacific Northwest Film Scoring Program was, regarding composition, the best instruction I ever had. It should have been BYU that had that, or Central Washington, either way. So when I hear professors that point the finger back at me, it makes me livid, because I've done my best to try to figure out where to go. At times it's been extremely frustrating, extremely confusing. I've been pushed this way and that to try to be this kind of composer, that kind of composer, in a way. More especially the cone-headed type of composer that doesn't write melodies and just writes weird, wacky, crazy stuff that isn't of much worth to me, or much worth to a lot of other people as well. It's just not, some of this composition, some of this avant-garde crap it's just nonsense. It's just nonsense. And yeah, you know, it's nonsense when you don't put any effort into it. You're breaking all kinds of rules. You're doing all kinds of crazy stuff that you never did before. Fine. But if it's just like a work of art that you just use a machine gun and, so to speak, or a machine to kind of just make paint blotches on something, you think that that's high art, or that's takes a lot of talent to do that. No, of course it doesn't. It's the same thing with composition. We can hear the compositions that are paint splotches, even though some professors seem to think it's such a good thing to do. Break away all the everything. No, it's great to kind of explore some things, explore all kinds of sounds and rhythms and whatever. That's fine. But the objective of composition should always be to have the composer become increasingly aware of the following. What are the possibilities in sound? What is possible? And the way that sound can be felt or interpreted is a different kind of question. But it's related. We experience music, right? But it should be, the composer should become increasingly, just it's like an explorer out in space. We get to the point in the technology where we're able to get outside the solar system. Well, we want to know what's out there. It's the same deal with composition. We want to know what we can write and how that might affect the listener, right? And that often involves a lot of sound effects and things that are somewhat avant-garde in a way. It can be very emotional, but it's at some level, you're not talking about music as much in the traditional way of thinking about music if you're talking about shrieks and moans and groans and these kinds of things. Oh, it's still technically music if you have those kinds of sounds, and it can affect the mood very much. It's sound. And sound, music is a bubble inside of the larger bubble of sound. And you can call sound music if you want to, but it isn't as related to definite pitches, basically. It's a broader definition of music. So, but that's all fine and good. And composers should certainly learn all these other skills, though. Notation, orchestration, and music technology, that sort of thing. These are all things that, and all kinds of other stuff as well. Harmonies and rhythms, and everything. Everything under the sun. It's a very all-encompassing thing, composition. But well, so I've been very confused in my life about academia, and I would talk to any professor about this at length, and I appreciate it when professors understand me better in this regard, because then they might have a better idea as to where I should go to grad school. What programs would be best suited for me. But the thing is that, it is a question of trust, but in a way it's different than if you trust someone personally. When you trust someone professionally, you're trusting someone with your future career and successes or whatever it is. You're trusting these professors with your career, your future, in a way. Your training. That's a lot of trust. You either trust them or you don't. And sometimes it's not a question of whether or not someone's trustworthy. It's a question of what their skill level is and are they keeping up with times. And if they want to just have either a heart-to-heart type talk, or they want to have some straight talk or more direct talk or be a little bit stern, whatever it is, sometimes some professors might say, I don't know. And then they might try to refer me to someone who they think is more knowledgeable in this area, but it might not be the best person. And again, I have to acknowledge the imperfections of these professors, but again, I have to wonder about, it's not just the professors I've studied with, it's their bosses. And then it's their bosses on top of those guys. Because those guys are really running the show. And I've never fully understood how that all works. I will at some point, I guess. But yeah, I mean, like, it's very vexing to have this confusion along with other kinds of things that are very confusing still in my life. It's different when you just know you're going to be a mechanic and you just are a natural fit with people you grow up with and you marry a good person and you have a family, and that's great. There are a lot of people like that, or there's some people like that, or some other kind of mechanic, an airline mechanic, or a policeman or a fireman or a doctor or lawyer, accountant, and all these other kinds of jobs. Like, and the job itself isn't all that all-encompassing in someone's life and what it means. It's not necessarily the same thing as being an actor or a musician or an artist or a... yeah. The arts are a much bigger part of everybody's life, but especially if you are an artist, it's like, yeah. Which is again why I'm so angry toward people that think they're artists and they're not. We put in an insane amount of work as classical musicians and composers, as jazz musicians and composers, as film composers, and other kinds of musicians that actually have to work very hard to get better. And then to call other people artists that have not put in that kind of time and energy, they don't have that kind of talent. I tried explaining this to a person online recently, this whole concept. I just, some people you just have to block. Some people you have to actually stop the conversation because they don't know what you know. They have not experienced what you've experienced. They haven't worked as hard as you have, not by a long shot. They don't know. Some people honestly don't know how to write a song. Period. And they think they're artists because they can combine parts of songs into a new song. No, they're not. That's not. They're not composers. They're not artists. They're not songwriters. They're just They're fake. It's not art. So I just no, I am not a part of that group. If I ever felt like I was not an avant-garde, if I ever felt like I was not an avant-garde composer, I am definitely not someone like that at all. And I have no respect for anyone who does that. Even if they do that legally, then it becomes, I just don't respect the artist. Now, if someone raps even, it's their own words, it's their own rhymes, it's their own rhythms. I don't care what they're putting in the background as long as I can use it legally. I'm listening to that background music. I'm listening to the actual words because that's what rap is. It's words. It's not really music in the same kind of meaning as we know. But I can tell if someone's a good rapper. Rapping is something that is very distinctly modern, urban, thuggish, African American. We all know this, even though there's rappers like Eminem, right? Not okay. Okay, Vanilla Ice. Yeah, Vanilla Ice. Okay, but it's not. Obviously, we know it's not just black folks that rap. The thing is that this kind of culture and this kind of music, it's always been not even remotely close to, not even remotely close to the quality. If you want to call it music, it's not even. It cannot ever touch at all. Con Function, Earth, Wind and Fire, Kool and the Gang, and all the other bands and groups that are black. If you're talking about black culture in music, and we were talking about black culture in music with this guy, it's not the same stuff at all. Real music is emotional. Real music has melody and has harmony, has rhythm. It sticks with you, and it helps you be. It has an effect on you. It's spiritual. It's emotional. It's romantic. It's imaginative. It helps you have some kinds of thoughts they wouldn't otherwise have. It expands your mind. It lifts you up from where you were, and it takes you to another place that's better, and helps you to realize more who you are. It's amazing, and that's what music is. And so many other things like that. What it isn't is stuff that is garbage. Makes you feel like garbage. It sounds like garbage. You can call it music if you want to, but if the effect that it has is to make you feel like garbage, what's the point? Whether it's avant-garde music or rap or heavy metal or whatever it is, it's still music, I guess. But the purpose, what's the purpose? It's funny because you can say you're a musician or you're best in this area, but if what you're doing is not what you were put on this earth to be or to do, then, yeah, okay. So you were a good artist, a visual artist. So why did you decide to just do a bunch of nude paintings? Is it like a perverted thing, or is it like something you're trying to follow the Europeans? And you think it's some kind of you're trying to make the human figure look more realistic? I mean, like, really, if we're in the arts, if we are ourselves in the arts, whether it's a hobby or whether it's what we do as a career, I think it's very wise to reevaluate at times why we did these things in the first place and what we are after and what we want to do, what we want to create. It's so easy to have other people people will want to, some people will just yak at you until they're blue in the face regarding what you should be writing, what you should be painting, no. I mean, you want to gain skills from them, from people that are professors, but you don't want to be told what to do. That's up to you. That's up to us, me, you. It's great to have a little guidance. Sure, some, but it's guidance, it's composers, it's styles, it's the other arts, but it's things that a professor should have insight regarding, oh, this student might really enjoy this kind of stuff. I can see them doing a lot more of this kind of stuff in the future. By all means, that's what we want to hear. But if a professor is always suggesting things that we really don't have any interest in, or not very much interested in, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that a professor should kind of, in my opinion, have enough insight to say, yeah, maybe this person is just not going to go this direction, no matter. And you should, no professor should try to coerce someone, or it's just I've always hated the indoctrination side of college, and this is in general, whether it's the arts or something else. And people are paying money for this. If I was a professor that was trying to indoctrinate someone, I'm not talking about religion necessarily, although you can talk about religion in a secular way or humanities kind of thing. But if I was trying to just indoctrinate people, and they're paying me money, no. Students pay money to improve in their skills and knowledge, especially skills, practical skills. That's worth money. No student wants to hear my opinions, and that's it. And they're paying me to hear my opinions about stuff, my musical tastes. No, they're not. I mean, that's a nice little cherry on top, but they're after the skills. They're after whatever it is to help them move forward in music. Some things are very difficult to explain to people. And once they're explained, I can't talk to professors about some of this stuff. Some of them they won't understand. They honestly won't understand. Or they're thinking in some outmoded way. They're not really listening fully. They're not really. It's not a question of trust. I don't want to work with these kinds of folks. The professors I want to work with are folks that would be understanding quite fully what I'm saying. And if they have any reservations about this kind of stuff, I shouldn't be working with them. If they want to work with more practical people, they should be working with more practical students, not with imaginative students, like myself, that are really sensitive and emotional. I want to work with professors that are that way themselves. Period. It's unbelievably frustrating. Some part of me says I should have been a lot more whatever. But, there were always reasons why I didn't go this way or that way. And so one of the few things I feel sometimes, is my fierce commitment to music and what I love in music. And also my fierce commitment to why I've chosen a lot of things in life the way I have. Even if they were not the greatest choices, they've made me distinctive and unique. I don't know too many people that are as good of composers as I am, that are also hornists and pianists, and teach and write especially that they write like I do. It's hardly anybody I know that's like that. I've heard compositions from horn professors. They're just not very inspiring. They're fine. They're all fine and good. Hornists will listen to them and play them, but who else will? And that's how so much of academia is like that. So, I have to be honest, realistic about this stuff. And yeah, that's nice, but no, it's not inspiring. If music is not inspiring, it doesn't stick with you. If it doesn't stick with you, it's just not worth very much, regardless of what kind of music it is. And is music just not worth very much, period, regardless? I mean, is there a consensus about that kind of thing? Well, on some level, I'd say that's actually a spiritual question. Um, I think that there's definitely always personal taste at play, but um, but I think there is on some level a lack of spirituality that is present when there are those that will resist music that is spiritual. That's the best way of putting it, or very emotional in certain respects. All right, I'll catch you guys later. Take care. Bye.